Welcome to the Pat White Show.
Well, if you're one of those people that happen to see the price of gas in your area suddenly jump, not just a little bit, but a whole bunch, you might be wondering, why is that happening? Here's the skinny. It seems that the Iranians, although we have been pounding them day and night, trying to take out all their missiles, their defenses, their naval defenses, we've basically sunk their navy. But there's a whole lot of Iranian military called the IRGC that are still operating. And one of the places they are operating is an area called the Straits of Hormuz. Now, the Straits of Hormuz are a little choke point, one of the biggest choke points in the world that goes from the Gulf of Oman to the Gulf Pacific Persian Gulf. And here's what it looks like. And you'll notice something in there, a whole bunch of green things. Those green things are ships that are not getting through, going from north to south, because all those ships have something on them. It's either oil or it's liquefied natural gas, and they aren't getting there because the Iranians say, okay, we're going to mine that narrow area that's about around 30 miles across. 30 miles, you can almost see across it from the Oman country to Iran. And yet, most of the shipping channels are much closer to Oman because the water is deeper there. And there's only 2 shipping lanes. They're 2 miles wide, so they're not very wide. It's a skinny area, they call it. And the ships want to get through there, but Iran says, no, we're going to mine that entire area. Now, the insurance companies insuring all those boats, carrying all the natural gas and the oil, are balking at paying off any insurance claims. So the ships sit there, renegotiating the deal with the insurance companies before they can even try to get through. But right now, they can't. But they are carrying 20% of the oil, and well, I take it back. It's 25% of the oil. And 20% of the world's the LNG, liquefied natural gas. And a lot of that, the liquefied natural gas is going to Asia, Japan, Korea, India. That's where most of it goes. Now, why the Iranians try to do this? The word is they're trying to force China to come in and back them up. They are getting desperate. They want China to say, hey, you come in and support us, because we're getting our butts kicked. So all those ships are sitting out there. Oil can't get through. Now that means shortage of oil on the market. When the oil is shorted, the price goes up. In our market, the price has gone from $2.69 to $3.29. Is that going to be the tops? Don't necessarily guarantee it. It could go up a lot higher depending on how long oil quantities are tightened up and can't get from one port to another. That's the issues that's going on right now. Yes, we are taking out the Iranians, but right now they're using this Strait of Hormuz as a choke point. And they're asking people, hey, we need help. And if you don't help us, we're going to mine the entire strait. And China's saying, don't you do it, because they're getting their liquefied natural gas from that area. So, who will blink? Will China say, okay, we'll take care of you, we'll cover you, we'll provide you with the weapons of war? Or will China say, no, we can't do it? Either way, this is a showdown. I'm not sure the way the showdown's going to work out, but right now, ships can't get through the strait. And the insurance companies are balking, and the Iranians are saying, we're going to mine the harbor and create an even bigger problem, because if we can't have it, nobody can have it. That seems to be their attitude, and whether that will stay or not, only time will tell. Today I happened to be watching C-SPAN, and I happened to be seeing what was going on in the House of Representatives. And lo and behold, it turned out to be one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. You probably won't see it on the news tonight. This is something that TV networks will probably bury and shouldn't, but here's what I saw. A resolution came to the House floor that would require information be given to the public. That public will be you and me. It has to do with the indiscretions of members of Congress, those committing sexual violations, sexual harassment, sexual, whatever, with members of their staff or other people, I guess, other employees. So the vote came to the floor. It was introduced by Representative Nancy Mace. She said, I want this resolution on there so that the public could see what's going on in Congress. Now you're saying to yourself, what do you mean what's going on in Congress? Turns out there is a slush fund. It's a pot of taxpayer money that if someone, a senator or a congressman in this case, happens to approach one of his employees or someone else and sexually harass them or do something to violate Title VII or Title IX, that guess what? They can be paid off. That person can be paid off by a fund run in Congress that you don't know about. It's made up of taxpayer money. Well, they get themselves in trouble, they say something or do something wrong. Well, here you go, sweetie. Take some money. Well, Nancy Mace says it's time the public see what's going on. She wants a report every 60 days where the Ethics Committee of the House, which is supposed to be running ethics, divulges and says, here's who's doing what to whom. Well, she was in favor of it, but believe it or not, two other congressmen were filibustering, and I use that word very lightly. They were, campaigning against it. Would that be the right term to use? One Republican, one Democrat. So, when the vote came down, they put the vote up and said, okay, everybody vote. The number of yeas voting to say, yes, release this information on congressmen doing bad stuff and being paid off to the person involved with taxpayer money, the yeas were 65. The nays, 357. Congressmen from both parties, men and women, voted no, not to release this information. I'm sorry, folks, this is disgusting. You know, all these congressmen are yelling and screaming and saying, release the Epstein files, release the Epstein files. And yet, when they want to release files on the congressmen and women themselves and their acts of sexual harassment or whatever, they don't want that out for you to see. But they sure want it out on somebody else. What's going to happen? It's going to be buried. You won't hear about it, you won't know about it, but Congress will still keep paying people off. You know, people who voted against this, even women. That's right, even women in Congress, like Ilhan Omar, she voted to hide it. The representative of Florida, she voted to hide it. Representative of Illinois, she voted to hide it. I didn't see any Indiana names on the list, but when I saw what was going on, the vote, 357 to 65 to keep it buried, folks, that's pretty disgusting. Now you know what's going on in your Congress. Media won't report it, but somebody else will. And frankly, what I saw was absolutely beyond the pale. And now you know. I want you to take a look at something going on in the country of Iran right now. Take a look at this. These are Iranian women removing the burqas they've been required to wear under the Islamic regime they have lived under. The country is Iran, originally was called Persia, and all over the world, Iranians are celebrating what has happened. Whether it's the United States, it's England, it's Europe, it's Australia, it's happening everywhere. And these are the women saying, we're tired of what we've been living under. And they're now showing their disgust for what's happened. So, the battle that started on Saturday morning, well, it's not yet over. It may be a while before it's done because there's a mission needs to be complete and all the objectives of the mission need to be complete. And that's what the job of the United States is. Now, I'm only saying this because I'm a former United States Air Force pilot. And in my career, the many airplanes I've flown, one was the KC-135, the Stratotanker. And that aircraft and the KC-46 were the mainstay of what the invasion and the attack happened this weekend, because they were the gas station in the sky. Planes went in, planes went out, they needed gas. And our job was to fill them up. And that's what we did. The entire event took months and months and months to plan. And I mean months. Bringing in 2 aircraft carriers, all the fleet that went with them, submarines, brought in hundreds of aircraft. I mean everything from F-35s to F-22s to F-16s, B-1s, B-2s. We brought everything in because we got ready to say to Iran, you know, we're tired of messing with you. We've been trying everything to get you to stop enriching uranium and stop trying to make an atomic bomb that you want to use on everybody. Because you have to remember, the regime in Iran is run by a Shiite Islamic radical. That's all I can say. A Shiite Islamic radical. Because in the Islamic religion, there are 2 factions. The Sunni religion, which is about 90% of the Muslims pretty much around the world, and that very small percentage of Shiite. They live in the 6th century. They operate on a different agenda, and the agenda is you are an infidel if you're not one of them. And their job is to infiltrate and convert you, and if you won't convert, you die. You kill them, they're a martyr. They get their virgins in paradise. Well, we had enough. And we had enough and said, you got to quit. They refused to quit. So yes, we went in, did what we had to do. In a short period of time, in one day, the United States military flew 2,000 sorties. Now, the country of Iran is not small. It is the size of Texas, a huge country. It borders a bunch of other countries where the U.S. had their air bases. These are countries who are friends, are cohorts. And yet the Iranians or some of their factions, their proxies, have been lobbing missiles at Israel. They've been lobbing missiles at Doha, Qatar, Kuwait, everywhere. And some of those missiles and those kamikaze drones have killed a number of servicemen. And that's unfortunate. But we have to take them out. Enough's enough, folks. And frankly, when this is done, and we want it done as soon as possible once the mission is complete, to let Iran figure out what they want to do. And there's one individual here in the United States, the son of the Shah of Iran, who, frankly, became an Air Force pilot. He attended pilot training at Reese Air Force Base in Lubbock, Texas, in 1978. Got his degree from USC in political science. It's Prince Ravi. Prince Ravi was interviewed on 60 Minutes, if you saw it. He said, we can't thank the president enough because this president did what 7 previous presidents didn't do. Stop this mess before it turns into a Holocaust. And many, many thousands and multi-thousands of people will die because one country wants to get a bomb and use it on everybody else. Now, will all this happen? Well, it's going to take a while. But you know what? We're there to solve a problem that nobody else has been willing to solve, and Iranians around the world are celebrating. Things are finally coming their way, and hopefully this country can return to a democratic elected government. And if it does, it'll probably change the face of politics, the face of the Middle East, and frankly, politics the world around. It's something that had to be done, needed to be done, and eventually we had to do it. Nobody else would. We had the courage to step up and say, enough is enough. And now, you know. Well, if you follow the history of the city of Fort Wayne, some of the things you can talk about that date back to in the last century and thereafter. One of the biggest things is Headwaters Park. Now, you know Headwaters Park, you drive down Clinton Street, you drive down the canopy of trees and everything else, go over the bridge. Well, back many years ago, in the 1980s, we had a flood in Fort Wayne. And I mean, it was a big flood. It flooded everything downtown. It was one of the worst we've ever seen. Second worst flood since 1913. Out of that came Headwaters Park. Took all the businesses, turned it into a park, and everything along the south side of the river that you see now. Well, the north side of the river had something called OmniSource on Clinton Street, and the City Power and Light building on the other side of the street. Well, OmniSource was there for a number of years. It was a recycling facility. Well, they ultimately closed down, and that property sat there, 29 acres, sat there for the longest time and still hasn't really been developed. It's been taken over by the city, and now, well, the city wants to develop it. But Ron Turpin, a county commissioner, says, Fort Wayne residents, you better take a look at that property and understand what they want to do with it, what Mayor Tucker wants to do with it, and if it's worth taxpayer dollars. And that's where I want to, give you a little heads up about this. Turns out, 29 acres of property, and it's been sitting there for a long time. And now they want to develop it into something that is both commercial, residential, and something that attracts a whole lot of people from out of town, visitors, if you will. What the plan is this. Recently, the city was granted some funds, original about $350,000 to be used to go to the architectural folks. And the architectural folks could say, okay, well, we're going to use that money to plan out how it's going to look, make a design, show you what it's going to look like with a mixed use. There's going to have housing in there. It's rental, it's for sale properties, single family, multifamily, and all those kind of things, as well as a field house. And that's the big thing going on, because the another city board is going to be granting $1.5 million also to go to the project, getting everything set up so people can see exactly what it's going to look like. But right now, the field house is going to be the big thing in this particular event, and I want to discuss that because according to the information that's been put out by the city, they want to build a field house of 160,000 square feet. You heard me right. A field house of 160,000 square feet. Now in it, well, you can have everything from basketball to soccer to volleyball to wrestling to cheerleading to pickleball to baseball, football, and a whole lot more inside a 160,000 square foot facility. But the cost, that's where we got to talk about. The estimated cost of that facility is $80 million. You heard me right, $80 million the estimated cost. Now, you're a taxpayer, I'm a taxpayer. Are we going to have to pay for this? Are taxes going to be raised to pay for this? Where does the mayor of Fort Wayne plan to find the money? They said, well, wait, it's going to earn revenue. I went, well, it better earn revenue. They're estimating it's going to earn $36 million a year in a 160,000 square foot facility. So I started doing the math on this. I'm thinking, already, 160,000 square feet, $80 million cost. Well, that's a building cost around $500 a square foot. But $80 million for a facility, how are you going to pay that off? Well, if you put a 30-year bond on it, that's going to work out to just the base cost of the bond is going to cost you about $2.7 million a year, just in principal, over 30 years. $2.7 million, and there's probably going to be more than that because there's interest and everything else, and I'm using a base number here. All right, then will the facility generate enough money to cover the cost of the bond? Well, they're saying it's going to earn $36 million a year. Well, how's that work out? Well, if you do the math on that, $36 million a year is $3 million a month. Man, that's a pretty good amount of traffic coming in. But they said there's going to be a lot of different events being held there. Everybody's going to be doing things there. Which got me to thinking, what about all the other field houses in town that also have stuff? Can that support that amount of money, $3 million they've got to raise every single month to cover the bond? That's a good question I think needs to be asked. And they said, well, yes, $36 million a year, and then it's going to have a payroll every year, and it's going to have 900 people employed. So I did the math. If everybody's part-time, well, it's going to be an average salary of around $15,000. If everybody's earning around $20, $22 an hour, because that's living wage, correct? So you got to have to cover the cost of that. What are the costs of the utilities going to be? What are the costs of the lights, the gas, all the stuff that needs to be done? Because that's only going to be one portion of the 29 acres. But what is that going to do to places like Parkview Fieldhouse and the Space Fieldhouse and all these other places that sponsor events? Is that going to take them all away? Or is it going to create new events, new people coming in from all around the United States, if you will, or at least in the Midwest? Because they're making a claim that this is going to draw people from around the Midwest who come to Fort Wayne and compete in various events. Well, competing in various events sounds fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you got to generate a whole lot of money every single month, 24 hours a day, to be able to cover the cost of your mortgage and whatever else you have to do. And is it possible, and can it be done without asking you and I, taxpayers, to open our wallets and pay more money? That's a big question you need to know about. So, Ron Turpin, County Commissioner, says, taxpayers, pay attention. Make sure that you believe that this is the right idea for the property. Because remember, many months ago, that property was, it was offered for sale. The likes of Chuck Surak was willing to give the city $12 million for it. But the mayor said, nope, I want to develop it. The question is, will a development pay for itself, or will taxpayers be on the hook? Something to think about. And now you know. You know, one of the biggest problems I hear people talking about nowadays are these data centers that are cropping up everywhere around the United States, and people have multiple complaints. And some are actually valid. Some, well, depends on who you ask. The biggest problem most people are talking about is, hey, these things are sucking up power like nobody's business. Well, they are big computers when you think about it. And computers all use power. Now they have these diesel backups that people are still complaining about, but ultimately, people are concerned about their electric bills going up because the power companies are having to feed the data centers. Well, is there a salvation to that problem? Is there a way to fix the problem? Well, it turns out that Bill Gates from Microsoft may have come on to something. He's been working on it for a number of years, a company called TerraPower that he has. And TerraPower is working on, believe it or not, nuclear reactors. Now, the moment you say nuclear reactors, everybody panics. And there hasn't been a nuclear reactor started in, like 40 years. And everybody thinks about Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island and anything bad about nuclear reactors. When you realize something, they do exist. The small ones do exist. Heck, every submarine in the U.S. fleet, they've got these nuclear reactors in them. Carriers, nuclear reactors. And they work just dandy. Well, TerraPower, Bill Gates, has just got a permit from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, first time they've given one in like 40 years, to create a new type of reactor, a different reactor. Not light water cooled, but cooled with liquid sodium. This is something totally different they've been working on for years. And they got their right to test it out in a little town about 130 miles outside of Salt Lake City, up in Wyoming, out in the hinterlands, where nobody is, but the wind, the cold, and the coyotes. They're going to test it out and see if they can make it work. And if it does, it may be an idea that every data center could possibly utilize their own nuclear power system to power their system. Because this system that Gates is building up, this thing is 345 megawatts. That would literally power 400,000 homes. That's a pretty serious computer. Doesn't use light water, special grade of uranium. It uses liquid sodium. Smaller, more compact, not the gigantic size you're used to. Is this a possibility? Maybe. But is it worth a shot? Most people would say yes, it is. Because if you don't want your electricity bill going up, because these data centers eat electricity, like everything else, like every computer. But understand something. The reason we have data centers is us. We want it to run our computers. We want it to take care of everything on our systems. We don't want to have bills sent to us anymore with paper. We want it delivered by computers. We want to have our phones, our computers. We want everything computerized. And because of that, more computers are needed. And the more people switching over from, the real world into computers, more data centers we're going to need because people ask for information. People want information. You talk about the cloud. Well, the cloud is somewhere. It's on a computer. So, will this concept work? I don't know. Will we find out? Yes, we will. And if it does, then maybe, just maybe, we've discovered a way to power those data centers and stay out of the homes of America. Something to think about, something for the future. But if you don't look ahead, you're going to fall behind. And now you know. If you're a fan of watching television, and frankly, who isn't, things are about to change in your world, especially if you have things like cable TV or YouTube TV or Dish TV or whatever particular system you have. Things are about to change because people are buying out people. The latest acquisition is this. Paramount has just purchased Warner Brothers. That's right. In Hollywood, there are 5 major studios, or there were 5 major studios, and one of them was Paramount. The other was, Warner Brothers. Well, Paramount just bought Warner Brothers. But you thought, just one studio buys another studio. It's no big deal. And just making movies. Not anymore, folks. Things over the years have changed because these movie studio houses have been buying up television networks. All kinds of television networks. Whether you're talking about the HBOs, CNNs, CBS, they're all being purchased by major studios. Paramount recently purchased CBS. CBS has started to change the focus of their newsroom. Brought in a different person to run the newsroom. Tends to be very, for the most part, conservative. And the style of CBS News has changed. Maybe that was because they got sued and lost a big amount of money. You can't defame people without being potentially charged with it. Now, so CBS News is now controlled by Paramount. But now that Disney has been purchased by Paramount, they picked up another network. And that other network is none other than CNN. That's right. CNN will ultimately now be controlled by Paramount once this deal goes through. Now, this deal could take, frankly, months and months to be consummated because there's going to be people saying, no, you can't do that. It's creating individual companies with too much power. That's pretty much the lay of the land nowadays. Things are changing that way. But if CNN becomes part of Paramount, then Paramount, the head of Paramount, could say, no, we're going to change our focus on how we react and how we look at political situations. Could that change the focus of CNN? Could people lose their jobs? Well, anytime an acquisition happens, anytime somebody buys somebody else out, I can guarantee you people are going to lose their jobs. It's the way the system works. But right now, if you're one of those people that has a thing called Paramount Plus on your TV, so if you're a streaming person, you can watch all the CBS programs at your own leisure. Well, how's that going to change when they get HBO? Because HBO Max and Paramount are about to team up. Could that result in HBO being on the Paramount Studios? Well, that's certainly a possibility. There's many things that could occur out of this, but in the end, I can tell you this. It's going to cost you money. Anytime these things happen, mergers happen, people end up spending more money. And the more money is usually the consumer, and that's you and I. Things are getting different, things are changing, but are they changing for the better? That only time will tell. And now you know. So let me ask you a question. Do you listen to radio? I mean, like In the car, in the home, you listen to radio. Well, many, many years ago, you could say, ask that question to anyone, and they would probably tell you, yeah, I do. I listen to radio. But over the years, things have changed because, well, contacting people, talking to people, and people listening has changed also. Because what's happened was, well, things like the internet and things like, your good old everyday cell phone. Because now there's so many different ways that you can listen to whatever it is you want. And you can do it not just in your car. And that's the beauty of communication. But if you're one who listens to the radio every day, maybe going to work or coming home from work, or maybe sitting in your office or whatever, and want to listen to something, who listens to what? Who's the most popular? Well, here's the information that you might be seeking. The number one station in the city of Fort Wayne at this moment, at this point in time, is WOWO. Why? Well, turns out a company called Nielsen. Now, you may have heard the term Nielsen before. Nielsen television ratings, well, they also do radio stations. And what they do is 2 times a year, Nielsen will flood the market, as they say, and they will contact hundreds, maybe thousands of families and say, are you willing to, well, fill out a diary, a book, a little book about like this, and you have to fill it out for a week. And during that week, you're required to write down every radio station you listen to, what time you listen to it, and, whatever you listen to. Record that for 1 solid week. Then after a week's done, you mail it back into Nielsen, and during a 1-month period, thousands of people get the same book. And they have to write down what age they are, family members, who listens to what. All those books ultimately get tabulated. Now, once all those books are tabulated, they put them together and figure out, here's what people listen to. And then they'll send this out, publish it out, if you will, so everybody can see, and the radio stations can take this to their advertisers and say, hey, here's who listens to us. Here's how many people listen to us. Here's what demographic listens to us. Here's how many women listening, kids listening, adults listening. This is the way radio stations sell the product that they have. But there's one important thing to know. You must be a member of the Nielsen family. You must join their group, their fraternity, sorority, call it whatever you want. You must be a part of their organization for you to be rated. And if you're not part of their organization, when the ratings come out, your name won't be there. That's the hook of the entire thing. So the stations have to pay to join the organization, get their books back, but they use that for marketing. So where do all the various stations rank in the marketing? Well, if you take a look, WOWO is number 1. This is in the fall of 2025. Behind them is WBCL, Christian radio. Then after that, country. That's right, country radio is very popular around the United States, no matter how you cut it. Some places it's number 1, other places like Fort Wayne, well, it's number 3. Then you go down to WBYR, active rock, and classic hits like WLDE. All these different stations are ranked, and they have numbers. And you can see on this chart, it starts over there, the spring of 24, the fall of 24, the spring of 25, and the fall of 25. The numbers change all the time based on who gets the diary, who fills them out, what they like and what they don't like. They move up and down. And you can see the biggest move was from the spring of 2024, where the WBCL had a 5.4, jumped up to a 7.7. Apparently a lot more people listening. So if someone comes to your business and says, here's the latest information on ratings, here's who listens to us, here's what we have, and that book contains all the data, all the information that has been put together by all these thousands of people filling out this little diary. They're writing in it every day, and you hope they're writing your station. They hope they're writing when they listen to you, because that's the way they figure out the ratings. It's not the best thing, but currently it's the only thing they've got. And for the most part, it's pretty accurate. Now you know.